So you're thinking about going to the United States, are you? Well, how much tax are you going to be paying? Don't know? Well, make sure you watch this video as I go through all those essential details. Hi, my name is Simon Misiewicz.
And my name is Louise Misiewicz.
And this YouTube channel is all about British people moving over to the United States in a tax-efficient framework. Now, if you are a UK or you invest in UK property and you want to reduce tax, then you want to be popping over to the optimized YouTube channel, and the link will be appearing just above Louise's head, or indeed you can get the details in the video description below.
So let's start by talking about the different tax filing structures in the UK versus the US. Are they really different? I guess the answer is, to begin with, most definitely on the face value of it. Yes, you're going to have to file tax returns to describe how much income you've earned, and yes, you're going to end up paying tax. And that's probably where the similarities start to dissipate. If you look at the US system, you can file in a number of ways. You have a choice. You can file singly, just as you. You could even file married jointly. Now in the UK, there is no choice and you have to file singly. The next thing to look at is the periods of time you have to capture in each annual tax return. In the UK, we start a tax year on the 6th of April in a year and finish it the following 5th of April. In the US, typically it's a calendar year running from the 1st of Jan all the way through to the 31st of December in the same year. So again, different dates. What about filing deadlines? Well, here in the UK, typically you file your tax return by no later than the 31st of January after the 5th of April year end that's occurred. In the US, actually you file normally on the April 15th date, as in after the 31st of December, so you've got a much shorter period of time. And please do notice, I've put the month in front of the days of the calendar month, and that's really important because that's how American date systems will work. So if you're looking at deadline dates, do keep in your mind's eye the first two dates presenting are actually the month, not the date in the month.
Which, just out of interest, can be really confusing if your birthday is like mine, the 7th of April, because in America I would have to put 0407. Crikey, that can be quite confusing.
So what about extension filing though? I've heard that that's possible in the US, and that indeed is the case. So although most people most likely file April 15, you might be in a position to file October 15. So a much longer period of time, probably equivalent to the UK time between coming to the end of a tax year and filing the relevant tax return.
Louise, just on that point, obviously we talked about a UK and a US tax filing. Sometimes you're going to have British people that still have to file UK tax returns because they have investments over there. And now they've got to do this extra tax return in the United States on a 1040 tax schedule. Is it easy as just taking, well, I earn £100,000 in the UK, I'll just put that 100,000 into the US tax return?
There's one word I'm going to use, and that is beware. Beware, because although they might have the same terminologies, income tax, capital gains tax, they might calculate them very differently. And indeed, in the majority of cases, the things that you need to take into account in calculating both incomes and gains could be exceptionally different. Not just the dates you have to capture them across, but also the contents that you're allowed to use to deduct certain elements of your income or gain and those that you are not. So when you are preparing these documents, you need a lot of support and a lot of guidance from people who really understand that detail. Let's have a quick look at the tax return formats as well. So in the US, typically a personal tax return, whether you're singly filing or filing married jointly, is going to be what's called a 1040. Now, really helpfully, it looks like it's just one simple document, almost one page. But just beware again, because at times there are going to be additional documents you need to file or extensions to this document. If you're filing a 1040 because you have income in the US but you're not resident there, then you don't use a 1040. No, you use a 1040 NR. And again, there are differences to those two forms. In the UK, you're going to use an SA100 and again some additional documents. So there's a lot of documents you need to take into account when you're preparing both the data to go into them and also which particular country you're filing it with.
And that leads us nicely then to think about the tax system itself. Of course, Louise, you talked about the tax return. However, we now need to think about, well, what taxes do you have to pay? First of all, we need to think about the UK. In the UK, you pay a national tax, and that is done through to HMRC. In America, however, there are two taxes that you need to think about. There is a federal tax, which is a central government tax, and then there's something called a state tax, and that can be quite costly. Now, in front of you, you should be able to see the IRS tax rates and how much tax you will pay based on your earnings. Very similarly to the UK, the more earnings you have,
the more taxes that you pay. Now,
when it comes to state tax, you will see that in Florida, for example, that you've got one color-coded system versus on the other side you have California. So you could correctly go to somewhere like Florida, enjoy the sun and pay no state tax at all. You could spend a lot more time on a plane and go all the way over to California, the land of oranges, and now you start to pay a lot more state tax. So Louise, why don't we think about an example here of Florida?
Okay, so let's have a look at Florida versus the UK. Now, the top line here is presenting the very highest rate of federal tax that you could pay based on taking the highest levels of income. In the federal state rate, which of course applies across wherever you live in the US, the highest rate is 37%. Compare that to the UK, which of course our highest rate of income tax here in the UK is 45%. However, as Simon pointed out, depending upon which state you live in, may incur additional local state taxes. In Florida, the rate is 0% on state, which means, of course, the total amount of tax you're going to pay on your income at the very highest rate remains at a total of 37%. Now that's all very well and good, but let's look at a real example. So we're going to look at an individual earning £100,000 or the equivalent in dollars, which today, when we're recording this video, is $140,000. So in the US, the actual rate of tax for that amount of income is just 24% in comparison to the UK at 40%. Well, that looks much better in the US, particularly in Florida, compared to the UK. But what about in California, that really expensive state tax location, Simon? Let's look at that example.
So we are now going to look at the land of oranges, where indeed you can get a lot of fruit, but you might get acidic burn by the amount of tax that you pay. So in California, you will have federal tax and you've got state tax. Now, as you can see, you are likely to pay over 50% of your earnings over in tax because of Fed and state tax. That's a lot of money to just hand over. Now, in the UK, yes, you've got this top tax rate of 45%, and you're kind of thinking, well, hold on a minute, surely I'm going to be paying more tax living in California. And then looking at this, you might think that's the case. However, please don't faint and disappear off, because that sunshine still needs you and you need it. So what I would say to you is someone earning £100,000 will pay a top tax rate of 40% in the UK, but actually in California, you'll be paying a top tax rate of 32%, which, let's be honest, is still better than paying 40% tax in the UK. So it's not as bad as we all think. So whenever you are thinking of moving to the United States, not only have you got to think about the central government tax, but also you've got to think about this state tax as well. So make sure that you look at each state, think about the opportunities that it can give to you and your family, but also how much tax you will be paying for it.
So whilst you're thinking about the taxes, why don't you think about clicking on our like button, also subscribing and hitting that notification bell so we can keep you up to date with the latest news from our channel here, so that you know exactly what's going on with taxes for US as well as UK.
Well, that's it for this show. And so from me, Simon Misiewicz, and
from Louise Misiewicz, thank you very much for your listening and watching, and do reach out to us if we can help you.